One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.
You kind of alluded to the next round of players coming onto the table or into the marketplace, and there's some on the West Coast, but talk me through how you see the next cohort of brands in college athletics coming to the table from a renegotiation, renewal, extension standpoint.
Yeah, we just had this really interesting, couple of months or a year where some of the biggest contracts all were renegotiated and extended at the same time. So Michigan's Nike deal was $169 million over 11 years. Texas and Nike, $250 million over 15 years. Ohio State and Nike, $252 million over 15 years, and then the UCLA deal. So those are all within the last year. One thing that's happening is as these contracts get longer in duration, the big schools don't come up for bid as often. So if we look out to next year, Oklahoma State, Rutgers, Utah, Colorado, Boise State, as far as I know, each of those expires mid-2017. Unless they've already extended. Those will all be coveted partners, but I don't think any of those will be on the scale of the three we just mentioned. You go out to 2018, you see Alabama, Louisville, your hometown school in Oregon, could be up for bid. Those are big programs. I think the next maybe monster deal could be Kansas, which competes at a high level in basketball and football. That's 2019 when that contract comes up.
And I'd like to connect some dots internationally, Matt. One of the things I'm always curious about is when we see mega apparel deals happen in European soccer, and recently Chelsea and Nike come to mind, Adidas and Man U come to mind, is the commitment of dollars across the Atlantic for these major brands. Does that impact what they can spend in the States, and if so, to what degree?
Yeah, so these companies account for these contracts under the same budget line. So it might be a European deal or a deal domestically, but it's still coming out of that, what Nike would call its demand creation expense. So Nike spends about $3.2 billion annually on sponsorships and advertising and athletic endorsements. So the big companies with a lot of resources, but they still need to be careful about the deals they sign. So we've seen Adidas as well walk away from some partnerships as it refocuses on product. And I think we'll see that trend continue. One other thing I would point out is, Adidas may have lost the UCLA deal. Some folks may see that some other programs have left Adidas, but that company is doing well. It's kind of reorganized itself. It's refocused on product. The numbers I see month to month on sales look really good for Adidas. So they're back on track.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I wanted to finish with this macro question of the industry as a whole. And you're right, Adidas has been up from a sales standpoint by percentage points in North America recently. What other items in the apparel and shoe business do you have your eye on, say, in the next quarter to fiscal year?
There's just an incredible demand for sportswear right now. I mean, if you go to the shopping mall or if you go to the grocery store, if you look around, you'll see people wearing athletic wear. So the industry is doing well. It's very popular. That's a trend that, may reverse or slow down at some point. I think the other, maybe big challenge ahead for these big brands is there are a lot of smaller companies also coming in and launching athletic wear lines. So that's something we'll watch down the road. And then maybe as a third item, as the deals for the biggest schools balloon, that leaves less money for the smaller schools. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to those deals. I mean, we did see Cincinnati, which in the scheme of things is a smaller program, double the financial terms of its contract when it jumped to Under Armour. I'll be interested to see if we see more of those deals with smaller schools.
It's interesting you mentioned kind of contemporary trends. So I'm sure you've already taken a long look at this book or read the whole thing, but I just finished Phil Knight's Shoe Dog. And, there's this, he talks multiple times in the 70s about how the turning point was when people started wearing what we now call, of course, athletic shoes or tennis shoes just in everyday life. So it's certainly interesting to think about, that cultural phenomenon that today we don't even give a second thought.
Yeah, no, it's remarkable when you look at Nike's business plan over time. I mean, Phil Knight wrote what became Nike's business plan in 1962, and the company virtually exists today with the same business plan, with the exception of advertising, which it didn't really focus on until the 80s. But it was born as a company that's focused on athletes, designing products athletes would want to wear and partnering with them early. And that's very much the company's business plan today.
And that's today's One Question, brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. One Question is designed to give D1 Ticker subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences. One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.